Welcome back, fellow Hearts of Iron fans. This is Gamer1745. Well, we're going to continue with more of this, playing Hearts of Iron 4 with Third Reich events as the preview here. I hope you're all enjoying this. Maybe a few of you have just clicked on here by accident, but I hope this is showing you a vision of what I think, at least an event-oriented additive we recently came out with. D-Day's common unit types mod. Black Ice is going to come out also. There are other sort of smaller mods that are adding more richness to the war game element, if you will, of the game. But remember, war is a political act, and it doesn't happen just as a couple of sides get together and decide to have a war. There's a political reason behind it that sets the stage, and that's what TRE is focused on about. Okay, a number of communist delegates from around the world meet in Paris today for a founding conference, laying the groundwork for what has been known as the Fourth Internationale. Calls for the formation have extended for years, with supporters of Trotsky's theories taking the lead. Stalin has responded to the growing support for Trotskyism abroad by ordering additional assassinations and increased propaganda against his old rival. With the press purges of suspected Trotskyites in the high ranks of the Soviets, I'm not reading this well. Soviet military and leadership, the recent memory, this is likely to be met with, unlikely to be met with any resistance. I believe it's Trotsky there. Back in his days when Russia, or the revolution, civil war, whatnot, when Lenin was still alive. Okay. And yes, Stalin very much feared, loathed, was more concerned about communists, radical socialists, radical anarchists than he was ever worried about fascists, Nazis, or monarchists. Those other enemies were enemies that he could deal with, that had a reasonable I don't know how he's going to reason. They weren't going to undermine his revolution, shall we put it that way. Where if you have an idealistic or just different viewpoint that's similar, they could infiltrate their ideas into the Soviet revolution, and whether it's him personally or his vision of the revolution, undermine it, destroy it, take it over. But so long as the communists were in power, say in Russia, the Soviets, I should say, not the communists, but the Soviets were in power in Russia, a German monarchist group or Hungarian monarchist group or whatever wasn't going to be taking over Russia. He didn't fear that, and he believed in eventuality there would be revolutions in all these other countries that would eventually lead to communists, and he wanted them to be his style, his supporter communists. So whenever a different communist movement sprang up in another country, he worked to crush it. He did not take any variance from his orthodoxy well, and he worked hard to do that. So if you were some fascist, now I'm not saying you could be a fascist leader in Russia, but there were, and this is something I'm going to get to someday, some fascists, but a bit more Nazis actually. There were several Nazi movements, Russian Nazi movements going on at this time. One I think was based in China, in Manchuria, and the other one based in the US, all of very small numbers. but were putting out propaganda, and they were all based around people born and raised within Russia. So that they were doing their activities, but those people really had no realistic fear of being assassinated by Stalin, because he didn't see him as a threat. None of these groups were big enough to move the needle inside of Russia, no matter how much, you know, they smuggled some stuff across some border somewhere, some propaganda leaflets or something. So he did not fear those type movements. So if you were a dissident, you know, or if you were a Tsarist dissident, there was a whole Tsarist White Russian movement, a bunch of them living in Yugoslavia and another bunch living in France at the time. Largely, and I can't say it categorically, but largely I know of no assassination attempts going against those types. But there were against other radical communist groups, including those of a Russian nature in exile. There's something to think about when you're trying to understand Stalin and what's going on at this time in the world. France and Britain announce an alliance. Okay, so we are having a more coordinated opposition internationally. The computing machine has reached a level that it's functional now. Okay, well, really don't know if decryption or encryption is helping much, but let's see what else. We're still in 38, of course. Maybe back to that. Let's do submarines instead. Okay. Actually, this is, I think, my no should come first, I believe. Okay. Here we go. The Führer speaks. On September 12th, Hitler made a speech at the Nazi Party rally, the Reich Großdeutschland. Basically, it's the Reich Party Day. The theme of this one is Greater Germany. The previous one was working to build a better Germany. And 1939's will be the movement for peace, which the rally never happens because they invade Poland and start a war, but hey, they were going to go for peace. It was a close run thing. Nazis for peace or Nazis for war. Nazis for war won out, but it's still to come. In Nuremberg, this was obviously, there was a lot going on for the rally, but on this one particular speech in Nuremberg on the Sudeten crisis, in which he condemned the actions of the government of Czechoslovakia, which includes the diplomatic report there. Hitler denounced Czechoslovakia for being a fraudulent state. In that aspect, I've come to agree with him. It was maybe a fraudulent nation would be better, in that obviously, once they got their freedom again, they split up between Czechoslovakia and between Slovakia and the Czech Republic. So it wasn't a unified national identity. That was in violation of international laws, emphasis of national self-determination. Yeah, he's really worried about national self-determination, of course, which there. So we will sour relations with Czechoslovakia some more, and of course increase world tension by 2 points. It's very inflammatory language, and our diplomats need to have yes or good or interesting or whatever for the button there. Our diplomats report Our diplomatic service reports that the Czechoslovakia government has disbanded the NSDA, or the SDP, and issued a arrest warrants for Konrad Henlein and Karl Frank. Henlein, Frank, they're banning the party basically, seizing its assets and such. So now we are in this situation that is leading to conflict. And now notice now, and it's worked, and this is actually the first time I've quite got to this stage with playing through, so I wanted to check it out. I need to, where it says Nuremberg underline speech underline 38, I gotta come up with just something that says that title a little better, that displays it. But that's what part of this is doing, is checking out what I'm doing here. Okay, the Graf Zeppelin 2 is launched. We now again have a modern Zeppelin, of course, because before our previous one, the Hindenburg, met with a bit of an accident in the United States. And what are we going to do with the big Zeppelin? No one's going to ride it as a passenger ship. And as I know I said before, it was designed to be a helium ship, but meaning it had enough lift capacity designed for helium, which doesn't lift as well as hydrogen. But nobody's going to ride a hydrogen bomb around anymore. Okay, let's see, we have some more factories, we can build stuff. Now we've got extra of that, and we'll need more when this war comes. Maybe overdoing it a little bit. And we have some free factories now. Just one. Do we have any deficits? No, we're all caught up with the needs for everything here. Our current production training levels and unit types. I'm going to increase fighter production. We need more fighters. Since we have 8 of those, let's reduce our reliance on Venezuela by 1. Now that we have more synthetic plants online in Germany. Air innovations, great, which has increased our air bases and air research ability now finally. But notice, it's only going to take 28 days, not the 70 days that the others, 'cause that's another thing I did, making you wait till after the Nuremberg speech. Because that's history, and that you don't get to do these things overnight, but we can now start it, and it's going to take a little bit quicker. You've been paying for it in your game. And even more aircraft. By this cost here, political power, constant, minus 6%. It's a percentage. I don't think I can make it a point in it. I think it needs to either be a percent like it is there, or it needs to be a complete integer, I think. Well, no, it says 1.00, so maybe I could do that. Because, see, obviously, the percent, and it says 6%, if you get rid of Hess and you get rid of Ribbentrop and put some other ministers on there that don't do it, don't increase political power gain, the 6% would be actually in a sort of smaller amount or whatever, as in absolute terms or something. So maybe it would be better to make a constant 0.6. I don't know. Or 0.3 maybe. Again, your feedback would be useful if you want to give it on that. Make it, instead of a percentage amount, make it an absolute amount. Well, let's do encryption to keep our U-boats a little safer. I'm very curious to see how well my event chain works as coded. It worked fine, it worked good in Hearts of Iron 3. I tried to replicate it as closely as I could with the new coding. But I am very curious to know. Now we can modify the government again. Now let's add our last military high command slot. Air interception, that's good. We want to control the skies. Okay. So now when I hit this, hopefully, if everything's done right, it's already fired this, but hopefully there will be no changes to the border right away, like there is in the standard game. So let's see. Okay, good, that worked. That worked the way it was intended. And fired this. Chamberlain at Berchtesgaden. You see a little bit from the New York Times there. There's internal violence and disruption. There's sort of the German Freikorps running around causing problems. In Czechoslovakia. So this does do an extra cost because we're dealing with Chamberlain there meeting Hitler. Those are the steps leading up to the place in Berchtesgaden. And I don't have the event moved over, I guess. But okay, that's worked. The Gonsberg Memorandum, they then have another meeting. Chamberlain's flying back and forth. Sorry if I'm not going into more details, but I'm just curious. Ooh, that's a problem there. National unity negative 500%. So there's a typo there somewhere. Okay. I'm probably going to go back to the monthly save or something for this. We're going to continue this series. Now we're down to 10% national unity. I guess that's not meant to happen. It's meant, and I got to look at the coding there. What it's meant to do is that you're basically sort of threatening a war. So this is destabilizing German national unity. Do we want to go to war with France and Britain over Czechoslovakia? Of course, the German people at this point are fairly well confirmed that the Sudetenland should be part of Germany, but is it worth another world war? So that's why the national unity is supposed to go down. Not that big massive hit, but it's supposed to go down in a significant way. Okay, and here I can try. I think I can hide that effect, and I'm going to hide that. You're getting to see this, obviously. If we want to, spoilers can see it. Right now, it's an 80% chance of peace, 20% chance of a crisis, not a crisis continuing, not of war yet. So we'll see what happens when we get this. And of course, it's Chamberlain, Edward de Ladier, Hitler, Mussolini, and Count Ciano right there. And that's those four guys' signatures on the paper, and that's a medal struck in commemoration of it, obviously afterwards. Okay, peace for our time. It's often nowadays called peace in our time, but what he said was peace for our time, meaning this generation, this thing, we're going to have peace. We're not going to have war. Not just peace now, but peace for our time. Not, and again, he wasn't such an ideologist, idealist that like the war to end all wars of World War I, there was never going to be another war again. He didn't think that, but he really sort of thought, Hitler bamboozled him, that we have peace for our time now. However, the now long is not just the next 6 months or a year, but for 5, 10 years or whatever. We were going to have peace, so no war. So what I can tell you is, had the crisis, the 20% happens, another event pops up, gives you sort of a bit of a warning, and then, which you just a single thing to hit on, and then you have a choice after that. You can let the issue rest. So if, like, you weren't prepared for a war, you hadn't built the defensive lines here yet, or you hadn't built enough troops or enough aircraft, if you weren't prepared for war, you could step back from this and Czechoslovakia stays the way it is, or you can press the issue, and then at that point, if you press the issue, you have a 50-50 chance of war with Britain coming in and France with Czechoslovakia. I'm still debating, and there's if you want to post, you'll find it on the main page of the Hearts of Iron forum, where I was asking for some Polish history help. How likely would Poland have come in the war? That you can read what's there and give your opinions if you like. But at least Czechoslovakia, France, and Britain would declare war. You have a 50-50 chance at that time if you press it. So it's an 80% this result, 20% the other, and then from there it's a 50-50. So you're down to about a 10% chance once you get to all the percents of starting a war at this. But I want to make this, and basically I just moved a lot of the coding for creating the Sudetenland away from the national focus and stuck it to peace for our time event. And obviously there's a newspaper headline there, famous him waving paper and a commemorative medal. So we'll go no war. Hitler wanted his war, didn't get it. So that's where we're going to end this episode. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks for liking the videos here or on Steam or anywhere else you can promote it up. And of course, thanks for posting questions, comments, suggestions, ideas, whether it's, again, an idea for some detailed thing. If you are starting to already giving me event ideas, some of my playtesters are, and some of the viewers here are, I'm happy for you doing that. The thing that makes, and I want to say this, all contributions to TRE, and won't go into too much detail, basically you're giving them free of charge. You're giving me use rights for them, so there's no ownership of TRE for contributions. Think of it as you're contributing to a free online magazine that you're writing an article that you're just happy to get it published. That's just sort of a waiver warning note on that. And of course I have abilities to change it in any way I want to. But if I'm going to use it, it's more likely to happen, because right now I'm concentrating obviously in converting the old stuff to the new, so I'm not really adding too much one new event, which we may see in the next episode, especially if I can get this fixed here. So not too much new right away, but if you want to get in, the ways to get an event in is provide me with some images to make the event image out of, provide me some basic information, text, agreement, and how you think it, I'll code it up, I don't mind that part of the work, but how you think it should affect the game, that kind of thing. So if you want to contribute that, that's fine. Generally it's best to do that, though you can do it here on, and I do follow what's going on here on the YouTube channel, but you can also do it on the Third Reich events forum. So, again, post your feedback, would love to hear it. See you next time for more Hearts of Iron. Good gaming.